Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of From Season 3, Episode 4. Make sure to hit that sub button so you don't miss one of my reviews of From. I'm also reviewing Penguin at the moment. Now, we actually jump right in where we left off, and we see that the birds come to greet Tabitha and the medics and the cop at the fallen tree in the road. So now you know, confirmed, it's definitely Fromville that they are at. And that adds more mystery to these birds, like theories too I've seen about, are they cameras really to watch these people? What is the deal with all these birds? We saw the bird come through the window at Fatima when she got the question asked about what's going to happen to her child. And then you see even Elgin has a bird on his shirt. So don't know what that really means, but I'd love to hear theories on that. Now, Ethan will actually answer the phone, the same phone Jim's been answering. So it's not just Jim who can hear the phone calls now and talk to these voices. It's the same person on the other side that's saying they're Thomas and that his mom's in trouble and she's in an ambulance on her way. But what I did notice is that when Ethan hands the phone over, the voice says, "Hi, Jim," before Jim even speaks. So it again makes me think they're always being watched in this town, unless it's a spirit entity that just sees everything. Now, with Marielle, she'll tell Fatima it's nice to be taking care of a pregnant mama bear again. And she says, "You look much better." She says, "Color's improved. You've been eating again?" Yeah, Fatima's been eating again. But I also think these kind of lines are important, how important Marielle's relationship with Fatima is going to be, because Marielle, it looks like, is the one they're setting up to kind of have to handle Fatima when it gets more and more revealed what's really going on with her. Now, Boyd and Randall are bus buddies this episode, and Randall wants to help because of something that gave anyone a chance to get out of there. He wants to help Boyd, and Boyd's shocked he's acting like a team player now. But this is where is a really good line where Randall brings up what happened to him, Julie, and Marielle. He's like, "Everyone here is afraid of dying. I don't think that's the worst thing that can happen to you here. I want out." So this is his real reason he wants to help Boyd. And it's really interesting because Julie will talk with Ethan later on in the episode about what happened to her and how it was the scariest thing she ever experienced, but doesn't really remember what she saw. So that was really interesting. And I hope by the end of the season they reveal what they really saw. But Randall notices the creatures are not doing their normal routine. So they know Boyd is in that bus, and they're getting smarter each season. And we've already seen that with how they toyed with Boyd killing Tia and Chen. Now, at the same time, Tabitha and the ambulance come into town, and no one's listening to Tabitha on that ambulance at all. They think she's absolutely nuts. And you see that a creature is lying dead on the street. So this is to lure in the medics and the cop. So you see that the monster comes alive and slices the medics, and the cop shoots at it to no avail. But my favorite thing in this moment, in this very intense sequence that will go on for a bit, which I really loved, Boyd finally tells Ethan, "Just stay inside. You running outside risks people having to protect you." Someone finally had to say this to Ethan, because the first thing he did seeing the ambulance was just run outside blindly. So he's fallen under that trap of just being a stupid kid trope this season. So I'm glad someone finally put a stop to that. Now Jim runs out, reunites with Tabitha in the ambulance, who is cuffed. And Randall knows now he has to get the toolkit to get her out. So this is like Randall's hero moment. But Randall gets trapped by these creatures. And it's interesting that the talisman doesn't work just sticking it out at them. And then the flies swarm around him. He's been seeing these flies for a bit. So that was kind of foreshadowing what was going to happen to him. Now, what I also thought was interesting is the creature goes up to Boyd and offers him keys to the ambulance in exchange for Randall. And she says, "You can't save them all." What I thought was so interesting about this is that it's clearly showing now that these creatures have no plans to kill Boyd. There's many moments this season they could have, and they haven't. This guy is probably the most protected in a sense because he's the one they want to torture the most. He is their challenge. But I agree with what Boyd did here, because at the end of the day, he's saving more people's lives by leaving Randall there. And Randall was trapped. I don't even know what the solution would have been of him running over there. So that's why sometimes I get annoyed with shows like this where they feel this immense guilt immediately. But it's like, what could have you done? You did the right thing, because I think if he went over there, what was he going to do to those four creatures surrounding him and all those flies? And also, Randall isn't the best person in the bunch. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, the non-playable character, Nikki, gets shot by the cop through the window. And you know what? Honestly, it kind of makes sense, because she was just staring at the window like, "Is that a cop?" And yeah, it is. She has a cop uniform on. She's shooting a gun. It's a cop. But then Boyd arrives to the house with Tabitha, Jim, and Henry. And seeing Henry there, you can't wait for the Victor reunion. But I'm going to predict that something happens with Victor and Sarah in the next episode that separates them from the group, because there's no way they're going to have that big moment with Victor and the dad right away. They got to kind of save that. I think it'd actually be too soon. Now, Elgin will see the tub woman again, and he first asks if he's awake. And you wonder, is he? Because the last time he had a nightmare like this, it involved Tilly as well. So she's the one talking to him. So it's really weird. And you're wondering if Tilly has a relation to this creature, is doing this to Elgin. But I also think it's really weird that if you notice, right before the non-playable character Nikki dies, she makes like this moaning sound that is the same exact sound that that creature that's been haunting Elgin from the bathtub made that first time. So I don't know if there's any connection there, but it literally was the same exact sound. Now, Tabitha fills in Jim about Miranda and the paintings, and she brings up how the little boy in white in the tower wanted to see this. She thinks that was the purpose of her going there. And when she's talking about the little boy in white, we'll see when we get to Victor and Sarah's story how he's really more and more being painted as a good character and that he's guiding everybody. There still could be sinister intentions there, but I do think if he spent so much time with Victor that he is a good soul in this Fromville, but we'll see. Now, Boyd irrationally just lays it on the cop for Nikki dying, and Donna's like, time out, Boyd, which was great. And then it was a great moment. She finally like lets it all out and breaks down and says, Boyd, I'm so effing scared. So really good moment between a great relationship of the show between Boyd and Donna. Now, one of the most wild things to happen in the show is when Fatima tells Ellis, I was so mean to Nikki before, I want to be with her alone. But she's really going in there to have some food. She's licking her fingers after touching the bullet wound, and Fatima is in full Yellow Jackets mode right now. Wild. And Fatima, I'm just so excited how great her storyline's been this season. From having such a boring storyline last season, they've really like turned a complete 180 on this character. And it ends with the cliffhanger where Randall is all pinned up on the ambulance, all cut up, but he's still alive. And the monsters will do this, right? They're going to torment Boyd and maybe want to use Randall if he's going to be really irrationally angry at Boyd, that he's going to go after them now and be a monster in his own sense, that they can have someone who is a human maybe on the monster side. So we'll see what they do with Randall here, but he's definitely going to be alive. The guy won't die. So everything with the main storyline in Fromville, really, really good. And that continues here where I love the story here with Victor and Sarah, which Victor's always been one of the more interesting stories, but I like this team up. I like he brought her because she's the scariest person, she said. So when he has to remember scary memories, she is there. She won't be scared by them. But Victor's having trouble remembering exactly what happened when everyone died. There's this trauma effect to this, him blocking it out. So he goes in the basement with Sarah and they make a fort. He catches Sarah up on what we already know is backstory, losing his sister and his mom, tells her about the boy in white, and he says this is his only friend all those years he was alone. It's so fascinating because, again, it's just this boy in this awful town by himself for this whole timeline. So you could almost do a whole show on that. And he says, I couldn't bury them all, but the boy in white is the one who told him to gather things that were precious to these dead bodies and to bury those instead. And that's what Victor's been holding in the suitcase. And he's hoping those trinkets will help him remember what exactly happened. So he has two nice memories at first with the trinkets, but then it goes sour when he just starts thinking about Christopher. He freaks out. But to calm him down, Sarah has a big moment where she says to him, you don't have to be afraid. I'm the scariest person in town, remember, which was great. But then he remembers Jasper, the ventriloquist dummy, who has been one of the most horrifying parts about this show, and that continues here. He had one of those jump scares when Jade saw him. That was terrifying, but Victor's also seen him before, and that continues here. And we learn more about this dummy, that Jasper belonged to Christopher. He'd make everyone laugh, which was still horrifying. But then Christopher started spending more time alone after he saw the symbols, and we see he was actually talking to Jasper. Now, because it's a ventriloquist dummy, maybe he was talking as Jasper to himself, but it did look clear like he was talking to it, and it was talking back. And that scream again, my God, it got me again when Jasper screams, wow. But Victor says Jasper is the one who can tell us why it happened, so it's going to be interesting. I'm guessing this is where they're going to depart, and him not seeing his father is Sarah and Victor going to see Jasper, and we saw that Jade saw Jasper in the caves, so that's probably where they're going to be headed, and saying that Jasper is the one who can tell us why it happened. So really fascinating turn of events there. The only storyline here that was a bit of a snooze was everything going on with Christy, Kenny, and Jade in the cabin in the woods. Kenny and Christy are having a powwow bond, and Jade says, maybe we can talk in the morning, which I love. I love his humor in this show. But Jade tells him about his latest hallucination, that he has been hallucinating in general, But the only thing that frustrates me about the character of Kenny, and sometimes Christy too, is he's so sentimental. Everything with his story is sentimental. It gets kind of corny after a while. Like when he's telling him that his mom really liked Jade, it's like, okay, let's go. But Jade asks to say on this letter he's writing to his mom that they all say hi. So it just seems like this letter he's writing to Tian Chen is going to be just something the creatures can use to taunt them later on. And there's more banging on the cabin, so we don't know what exactly that is. But this episode to me was arguably a top 3 episode of the show to date, and what I loved about it is it was only 44 minutes long. So they shaved some of that fat that they put on some of these episodes, where I've said with From that when I get frustrated when it's like a 58-minute episode, but there's like a couple scenes that feel like deleted scenes you'd see on like a DVD extras bonus feature. So I think you feel the pace is so much better here, and it grips you the whole time. So if the show keeps giving us shorter episodes but more gripping and intense and keeping you engaged, I'd rather take that than having just scenes that are just there that don't really push the plot forward or give us much character detail we couldn't already assume that's there. But I'm giving this episode 8.8. I really loved it, and I can't wait for next week now. And I clearly think so far this season's shaping up to be the best season of the show to date. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think of this season and this episode in particular, all your theories as well. Please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me, and I'll see you next time.